good vibrations.
So my guest today is a name who will be familiar to anyone who's followed dance music and club culture over the past 30 years. He's a real pioneer of the scene, and he's since become that rarest of entities, someone in the public eye from the music industry speaking out about tyranny and government overreach. There's not many voices doing that. So it's welcome on to Danny Rampling.
Good afternoon, Mark. Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Before we get down to business, I did just want to spend a quick 5 minutes with a bit of DJ banter, since I don't get to talk to many other DJs anymore these days. So we met in April 2008 at an event in Riga, Latvia called Dance Summit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but you were playing the room, I was playing the hip hop room. Yeah. And we were both due to fly back the same day from Riga on Ryanair, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And as the plane came in, it got a bird strike and one of the engines got knackered. And so we were stranded in Riga for 24 hours. And we got chatting. You actually put me on to the Zeitgeist movie, which is the first time I'd heard of it. And you told me all about that. So I think we absorbed it at the time.
Yeah, wow. The precise date, 2008, I do remember that trip very clearly because we were stranded at the airport, decided to go back to the hotel and wait for the next day.
That's right. And you kindly gave me the hotel room that you had booked at the airport because you went back into the city to get to another one. So appreciated that gesture.
Yeah. Well, my pleasure, because I had an arrangement with the promoter as well. So the hotel that I'd been staying in, I just thought I'll go back there and stay there for the night. And you had the other room. So at least we had some accommodation.
Indeed. And I do remember that trip because at the time you were on the phone to your little man, to your son. And back then, my wife and myself really wanted to have children, and it just wasn't working for us. And I came back off that trip, put my foot through the door, and my wife said, guess what? I'm pregnant. So that trip does kind of stay in my mind for those reasons as well.
Of course, yeah, very memorable. My son was 4 at that time. He's 17 now. Time flies.
Time flies indeed. And I used to, like so many other people, listen to your Love Groove Dance Party on Radio 1 back in the 90s. And you pretty much put me on to the soulful, uplifting house sound, which is the only style that I can listen to anymore. That's what I now play. But I've got many happy memories of Saturday evenings listening to you on Radio 1 and all that good music. And what I used to love about that show also was the Easy Funky 3 that you used to do, which was a departure from the house music, and it was, you know, some different styles. And I remember one time you just got back from Jamaica and you brought back a reggae rhythm with you called Joyride in 1996.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I love the reggae tunes on that rhythm, and you put me onto that. So
yeah, we went into a bit of a reggae direction, and the producers didn't say they after a couple of weeks of it, they said this isn't fitting with the show. But the listeners were enjoying it because it was something different, and it was some reggae music on a Saturday night. And I was very inspired by a trip to Jamaica to Negril, and I went to the there was this shack on the beach. And it was a record store on the beach overlooking the sea, in this, you know, kind of wooden shack with a big sound system in it, and just loads and loads of reggae 7-inch singles. So I stayed in there most of the all afternoon and was chatting to the guy in there. He was friends with Joey J, Norman J's brother, and very very acquainted with Tim Westwood and a number of Manasseh and a number of London DJs. So. Yeah, I bought loads and loads of reggae 7-inch singles. It was, you know, in Jamaica, and having a couple of cans of Red Stripe and just listening to all this great music. So it influenced me, and I came back and started playing the reggae sound on the Easy 3, but it unfortunately didn't last that long.
Yeah, good stuff. I went to Jamaica the year after, 97, and I was that foolish white guy that went walking into town and went into a record store to try and track down some 7-inch singles. And I stood out like a sore thumb, you know, and one of the guys from the hotel complex that I was staying at said, you really shouldn't be here. It's not a good idea to walk into this town by yourself. But that's the lengths I was prepared to go to track down some good reggae 7 inches.
Yeah, well, that's what we do for music, isn't it? it, but everything worked out. You got some good music, made some new friends, and everything was fine, you know?
Exactly. And I'm still here. So you've always been one of the most interesting DJs to hear speak. And I remember a Mixmag interview you did years ago where they asked you where you were from. And you said, well, I'm from London, but I'm originally from somewhere out there in the stars, which is not your standard sort of response to that question. So you've always been happy to kind of express your spiritual side, and you seem to have a bit of a hippie spirit. Would that be fair to say?
Well, the spiritual side of it, this became apparent very early on. I lost a friend at 11 or 12 years old. No, I was 12, and he was 14, and he got stabbed to death after a disco, and that really sent me on a quest of. I went and saw a medium, a spiritualist, and I became very interested in it. It's a horrible story, and losing somebody, you know, kind of that young, and it's just, yeah, it just takes you off your feet, and that began this interest in spiritualism. And then I lost another friend on a motorcycle accident. He died on New Year's Day, got this new motorbike, and came off of it on Crystal Palace Hill, and he died in that accident, and we were all so shocked. We were about 14 at that time, so that set me on this path of interest in spiritualism. And then sometime later in 1986, I was in America for close to a year. I left London and went on an adventure and worked over in the States. And when I was leaving that trip, a friend came over, and he'd won a lot of money on the Grand National, like thousands of pounds. And he had this flash car, and he just passed his driving test, so he wasn't a proficient driver. So off we went to Kennedy Space Center, which was amazing. You know, all of the kind of the interest in space. I'm super interested in space, always have been since a kid. When the moon landings happened, and seeing that, you know, as a school kid. So we went there, and then we were driving back, and the rain had come down, and we went around a bend, and the road looked dry. But in Florida, it's so hot, and when it rains, the tar on the road becomes very oily. So he lost control of the vehicle, and ended up, fortunately, not leaving the road into a large ravine and woodland, and impaled itself onto the end of the crash barrier, which came through the car. And I went through the side window and blacked out. And I thought I was dying, because when you black out, you've got blood all over in your eyes, and the impact of the smash of the car. And I thought I was dying, and went to hospital, and they dealt with me. I had glass in my face, broke my hand, I had damage to my leg, and it could have been a lot worse. But that was a real spiritual awakening for me, in terms of how precious life is, and how precious time is very important. You know, time is our most precious commodity. And that happened, and I think it happened for a good reason, because it completely transformed my outlook on life. And I came back from there. We were going to go to the Paradise Garage in New York, and got into New York on the Wednesday, and it wasn't open. It was only open on the weekends. I desperately wanted to go there, even though I was bandaged up and stuff, and was only in New York for the Wednesday and Thursday. And that was my first trip to New York, and that was in 1987, and came back to the UK. But so that was a real turning point for me. And then shortly after, the whole acid house scene began, and our trip to Ibiza, and my pioneering spirit and zest for life, I think really it shined a light upon everybody who came to Shum, which was the club I created. And it was a collective consciousness. It wasn't just people in a nightclub. There was a real feeling of optimism, and I was projecting to the regulars and the people who came along there to dance, all this energy, because I had a club to play in. It was my break. I created this club called Shoom in a fitness centre basement, and life just felt so good that I'd come out of that experience and then went to Ibiza and came back with all that inspiration and created my club. And it was just an incredible, unique time. But my energy was transferred to the crowd at Shoom, and they were known as the Shoomers. It was it became like a family. And some of them were, I think they were using hallucinogenics as well at that time. And one of them in particular, he thought I was the resurrection and Messiah. He was a former Jehovah's Witness, and actually it kind of it was a very weird experience. He came around and read a passage out of the Bible, and it spooked me, quite frankly. But there was all this spiritual energy that was being transferred with everybody who was part of that early movement. It was the collective consciousness together was very powerful, and it changed so much. It was so positive and so inclusive, and at that time, very much like it is now with what well, not to the degree that we're experiencing now, but we go back to the 1980s. There was a lot of disparity in Britain, particularly with the working classes and the Margaret Thatcher government. So the lead up to Acid House was, it wasn't tons of opportunities. So we just got on and did our own thing, and a DIY scene emerged. We created a subculture, a counterculture, and we just did our own thing. We weren't bothered about politics. We weren't bothered about what was going on. We'd found what we were looking for, and we were having the time of our lives, all of us. And everybody who either came along to dance or was DJing or was part of the sound systems and the lighting and the graphics, loads of opportunities were created, and people came together, and they just followed their direction, what they wanted to do. So they opened up their own record labels, their own record stores, clothing, fashion, because people were mixing it was such a diverse group of people. There was all ages and many successful people, many people who were super creative and successful, fashion designers, artists, photographers, musicians, producers, and they all melded into one. And that gave a lot of opportunity to a lot of the young kids who that was their dream, to work in music, scene or whether fashion scene. And it really did bring so many people together. It was about unity and collective consciousness and inclusion and hope and faith and love and peace and all these things together.
Yeah. I remember you in a previous interview talking about a planetary conjunction which took place in August 1987, which was the month of your famous trip to Ibiza. So it feels as if the universe was kind of bringing all these elements together and making that whole thing happen. It just seems like something that was always destined to be.
Well, it's the cycles, and the harmonic convergence was around that time. So as is the planetary conjunction, which happened in October, which heralded in the Aquarian age into the fifth dimension. Now, these are cycles, planetary cycles of the universe. So we are all energy, and energy affects us, and the frequencies that we resonate, vibrate on. So there was definitely something more going on at that time. This whole scene exploded shortly after the Berlin Wall came down, and all that division and oppression, apartheid in South Africa, that changed. That was no longer. There was demonstrations outside South Africa House on Trafalgar Square for many years. So all these things there was a succession of positive sequence of events, and this change, this great change that was happening, fueled a wave of optimism and positivity and excitement and enthusiasm that there was real change happening, and the world was changing, which it was. And and we changed youth culture and our own culture within music and the arts and fashion, and that was exported across the world.
Everything happens for a reason, and the universe tends to place us where we're most needed at the time we're needed. And I guess that's what's stood you in good stead to be speaking out now about true rights and freedoms in this current scenario, since you have a deep understanding of where real rights and freedoms come from. It's not some entity called government. They come from creation itself. And what we got going on right now is a war on joy, as I see it. They've waged war on partying, fun, nightclubs, festivals, all of this. And I think you're in an ideal position now to be a very loud voice opposing what's going on because of your history and where you've come from and what you've experienced.
Absolutely. And, kind of life experience and all of these things shape the person that you are today. But if we go back to the rave scene, I didn't play on many of those big raves because they were commercially driven. It became that way. I played on some of the early ones and it was great, 100,000 people together. And so that when that got so big, it became very political, and they were closed down, and that led to the criminal justice bill. So I remember going to the rally in Hyde Park back then. Tony Benn addressed the crowd, and there were thousands and thousands of people there. I think this may have been 1990 or 91 when that was introduced. And the march went up Park Lane, and then there was just a sea of police officers, and I thought, this is getting heavy. So I just kind of stepped to the side and went in the park, back in the park, and many people did, but there were sound systems coming along Park Lane. It did get a bit heavy, but I'd been to the rally, and I thought Tony Benn, his address was incredible. I think he's one of the most outstanding politicians of modern history. And I wonder what he would be doing now in this current climate. So, this what's going on now. And as you say, the stopping of joy it's atrocious. Music brings us together. It unites us. It heals. And all of that, that's been stamped out for 16 months practically. I think a lot of people in the music industry were counting that the reopening announcement on June the 21st was going to be, everything will be normal on the 26th of June. But I remained sceptical of that. And I said this in an interview after one of the rallies in Regent's Park, that one has a level of mistrust in the announcements that have been made, and to remain slightly sceptical. If it happens, yes, great. And it didn't happen. And a lot of people are out on a limb. People were preparing their businesses to open, which is a 2-3 week process. The bookings, the logistics, everything. It has such a knock-on effect. So we shall see what happens on the 19th of July. There are some in the industry who are, it's only another 2 or 3 weeks. Well, that's been said for close to 16 months now, hasn't it? It was like 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we'd be out of this in a month.
Exactly.
But the closing down of festivals, music concerts, live gigs, club nights, dance and performance, all of this brings us joy, and it brings us together, and this human interaction is a basic human need. It's our primal need. And the power of a large audience of 50,000 at a concert, or maybe say, 50,000 at a festival, or 10,000 at a music event, a one-day event, that's powerful. And that unity that people feel, because everybody there is like-minded and enjoying music, and that's their passion. So I think that actually frightens them. It did back in the 80s with the rave thing. We were just doing we just got on and did our thing, and we changed a lot, and it brought so many people together. And bringing people together is not the remit, is it? As we can see right now, society is split in a lot of these kind of decisions and arguments. Families are, co-workers, friends. It's this divide and conquer agenda is so evidently clear. It's so clear. But I said this again. I said this: do not let them divide us. We have a choice. We are free to make a choice. We are free to consent, or we're free not to consent. Those are our human rights. Self-sovereignty is a very, very important and overlooked human right. Also, I feel that realization of self-sovereignty. You are the keeper of your own kingdom, or we are the keepers of our own kingdom. And I feel that looking at stuff online and talking to people, I see a shift towards that. There are more people coming to the realization of who they are through the lockdown. This past lockdown in the winter has been very, very difficult and challenging. And a lot of people have done a lot of soul searching, particularly people who are living alone or live alone. And I think that's brought a lot of this to the forefront. Spending time alone is good for the soul on your terms. But I think the spiritual aspect and who we really are as human beings, I think there's been a massive awakening that's growing exponentially. And this is what we're seeing at the freedom rallies. I said to two young DJ guys who came up to me in Hyde Park after the last rally, which was immense. It was huge. There's different estimates on the volume of people, but it stretched from way down Oxford Street to Parliament Square. Now that's a lot of people.
Best part of 1 million there, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And the one before. Now, the atmosphere at the rallies, it's unity, it's collective consciousness. There's a spirit and an energy, a positive energy. People standing in the light, standing in their truth. It's a collective, unified front, and the communication between people. Everybody is aligned. Everybody is in that consciousness. And I said to these two young guys, they said, "Oh, I really wish we'd have been around at," I suppose they were early 20s. "I really wish we'd have been around at, in those days. It must have been amazing." I said, "Yeah, it was amazing. It was, it was incredible, unique." I said, "But you're coming into the DJ scene, you're starting out, you have a long career ahead of you. And it's really hard for you guys, starting out on your career. We've been very blessed over many, many years to play around the world and, have all these great parties and this, kind of network of people internationally. But I said, here today," they said, "this is our first rally and this is brilliant." I said, "Well, I'll tell you something. The energy that you have felt here today and the communication and the spirit of the people is exactly the same as what it was back then in 1988 and 89, the summers of love, in a different form. It's not in a field with a loud sound system, or in a club, a basement. This is the same consciousness, collective consciousness, the same positive energy, in a different form." And they were kind of, wow. And that's what I feel at these rallies. And when we come together, it's very aligned to that feeling and that experience back then.
Absolutely. What are some of the most extreme outrages that you feel the government has dropped on the people? What annoys you the most about what's been done to us?
I think there has been it's continuing major hoodwinking and deception of public minds. This fear campaign, based in neuro-linguistic programming, it's straight out of that textbook. It's put the fear, and some people, they are terrified, petrified, seeing all this visually around you, there's signs everywhere and squares on the floor in a shop or something. All of this, it's this dystopian.
It's traumatizing.
It is traumatizing, and everybody in masks around you, and a lot of elderly people haven't been out of their own backyards and their own houses for all this duration. They're scared to go out. They don't want to get sick, and they're trapped in their own homes partly through choice, partly through fear, partly through protecting their health. That's not living. It's not living, and it has traumatized children. Everybody has been traumatized by this, and it's continuing. It's cruel. It is abusive. It's a sadomasochistic relationship between those that are controlling the narrative and the public. It's a large proportion of the public. I think, and this restrictions, you are not allowed to go out of the county, or you're not allowed to go and visit family, on people dying in hospital alone with a nurse holding their hand, and people in care homes looking through windows. I live, where I live, there's a dementia home down the street, and I see families standing outside the front window. They've put flowers on the window, some paper flowers, and they're talking on the telephone through the window to their relations. It's heartbreaking to see that. Yeah. All of this, it's so cruel. It's unethical. It's morally wrong, and it's designed to instill fear into people worldwide. The whole year of not being out, 16 months. I did 2 events last year in August, when there was September, there was a brief respite from all of this. And it was one of those tables of 6 things. Fortunately, I got to play in 2 places. I wasn't very happy about it, but that was the council's restrictions, that people had to sit on a table of 6. No dancing.
Dance in a chair.
Yeah, dance in a chair. It's just pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And these were both open air events. And I just thought, what the hell? Okay, it was some work, which was much needed. But apart from that, that's been it. And it's just, over a year of not working. And, everybody, particularly in our industry, devastated the industry is. Businesses have closed. There's 3 million freelancers who've fallen through the cracks. Not that we want their benefits. We don't want their financial government support. We want to go to work, and we have a right to work, and we have a right to travel. And this is what people need to recognize. We are free, sovereign beings. We have the right to travel on our terms wherever we choose to. Who are these people telling us that you will not do this? You will do as we say. Now, I'm not an anarchist, but I don't resonate with that at all. I don't resonate with it. Don't devastate my livelihood, my career, keeping elderly family apart, and all of these things combined. For all of us, it's unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable. And all of this, if you go and visit a family member, you might kill your family member. Don't kill granny. And these bus stop adverts of act like you've got it. That's just NLP programming. It's programming people's minds to be in fear. It's just wrong. Everything about it is wrong. And I just don't understand, I think through the fear this is that, there are many people that just don't really see it, and, They think, well, this is how it is. And there's all this guilt projection as well, which is, you can see right through it. The whole campaign of this has been built in guilt. It's, you're doing it to protect other people and all of this. I had this from my 17-year-old son, but I'm going to be protecting other people. I said, well, your health is fine. You are, you're athletic. You eat a healthy diet. You are very unlikely to catch coronavirus. His reply was, well, I could have it and I don't even know that I have coronavirus and I could spread it to somebody else. This is the programming, how deep. That's just nonsense.
Who would ever come up with that idea by themselves if it hadn't been put into their mind by one of these agencies like Sage or Tavistock or the Behavioral Insights team? They specialize in training thought and in training behaviors in this way. People don't realize these organizations exist for that very role. Yeah.
Well, it's behavioral science. It's mind conditioning. It's straight out of a science fiction film. There are days it's like we're living in an episode of Quatermass, that old science fiction kind of horror thing, and as each day goes by, and what I've found really difficult with this is I've gone through some hard times with work and another matter in the last decade. But, you'd have a bit of a period where it could be 2-3 weeks and there's, oh gosh, I'm kind of haven't got any work this weekend or something. But then you knew that a couple of weeks later or next week you get a job offer. And that always happened. But with this, it's very, very different. That optimism and, kind of the universe providing, it's like, oh, but there isn't going to be a job offer come in tomorrow because nothing's open. Everything's closed. You can't go and work because there's nothing happening. But there are, underground parties that have been going on and raves throughout this whole blooming, call it a crisis.
Shit show.
A shit show. That's basically what it is. A shit storm and a shit show. But, there's been things going on. I haven't played on any of them, but I have to say, if things don't get open, then it's going to be return to the source and just go back and host my own events and play on unlicensed events, because that's the only way. I think this is not going to continue this way. We have a right to express ourselves, and we have a right to dance. We have a right to work. I was sick and tired of it, absolutely sick to the teeth of it. And this about speaking out, what the hell have you got to lose? We've lost everything as it is.
Exactly.
It's like, come on. What, if you're under so much pressure with this, and your intuition is telling you something isn't right, it's not right, is it? It isn't right. So everything about it is, it's like staring, it's right before your eyes. So speaking out it's integral and important to who we are and the communities that we are part of, whether that be music, whether that be fashion, whether that be art. But there's, in the music industry, for example, there's too much silence. There's too much conformity. It's staggering. It is staggering. And there's a few people that have, got out there and they're on the hill and they're speaking out and they're attending rallies and they're campaigning. There's a handful.
Well, let's shout them out. I mean, there's Van Morrison, who put a track recently called "Where Have All the Rebels Gone?", which is a good question. There's Ian Brown of the Stone Roses. Eric Clapton's joined together with Van Morrison. Right Said Fred have been turning up to some of the rallies. And then from the dance music world, I know Gary Cobain of Future Sound of London has had a few things to say, so respect to him. Good. Baby D of Let Me Be Your Fantasy fame, she's been turning up to rallies. And Steve Lawler has said a thing or two as well, but I'm kind of getting stuck for names beyond that.
Slipmatt as well, the rave DJ.
Okay.
And there's a handful of others.
Not many though, is it?
Norris Windross. There aren't many, no. There really are not many people who are prepared to stand up and get on the hill.
I'm just wondering, where's all the punk rockers? Where's all the heavy metal guys? Where's all the drum and bass guys? Aren't these scenes supposed to be all about rebellion and doing your own thing, that DIY ethos, and opposing the government, opposing the establishment? What happened to that spirit, the original spirit of acid house, of rave? Where did all that go?
Well, I think the kind of maybe the kind of people who've got comfortable, the kind of from the original wave, maybe that's part of it. People have got older. People don't want to upset the status quo. The other kind of the others who are kind of in Premiership division of DJing and international travel and what have you. Management don't rock the boat with the management and the sponsorship and the branding with companies. Even irrespective of your views, stay silent. I think there's a lot of that at a high level within professions, but that isn't right, because this is beyond politics. This is about humanity and the future of humanity and our children and our families and our friends. This is what this is about. This is politics and this one world World Economic Forum build back better bollocks.
Great reset,
it is bollocks. It's like, let's timely detonate and demolish the economies to draft in this great reset, as they call it.
Communism by any other name.
Well, neo-Marxism and communism combined. But this is not a fair. It's not leading us into a fairer society as they're dressing it up. It's benefiting multinational corporations and these political figures and the technocracy and the billionaires. Not all billionaires, and that's who it's benefiting, driving it into a slavery society. Vaccine passports will lead to social credit scoring, which they have in China. Wake up, people. That wouldn't happen here. This is what they're trying to draft in. Have a look at the World Economic Forum's manifesto on their website. 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Yeah.
You work hard in life, you're smart in business, you can have your ups and downs, you can lose everything and get it back again. That's, kind of capitalism and a fair, free, open society. We don't want to go down the world, this road of world communism and total control. This is about control. What's it going to take for everybody to come to the realization that this is not acceptable and it's not the world we want our children to grow up in and become adults and live their lives in the future and our own lives? What is it going to take? Being dismissive that, this isn't actually, it's not happening, and that's a conspiracy theory, and the World Economic Forum, but actually I'm a bit lazy. I'm just going to watch Netflix, and I can't be bothered to read all that information on there. There's so much information, which there is. And if you want to download the Great Reset book, there are a number of websites online where you can download that for free and read it and get inside the mind of Klaus Schwab, who's been working on this for decades. It's been going. He is a complete psychopath, an enemy of humanity. And this vision they have of the world that they want to shape in transhumanism, it is evil. This is evil, and it's messing with the natural laws of the universe and humanity. That book is an essential read. Read it. It's all there. And go to the government website and read about the fourth industrial revolution and augmented reality and all these things. They're all there. Dominic Cummings' blog is very interesting about AI and his views and his essays on his blog. It's good to understand the way these people think and what they are planning to unleash upon the world. It's already underway.
It's just tragic that there are so few other people making these points that you've just made. because just imagine if half a dozen A-list household name DJs were all speaking out the way you are, the amount of people they could influence from their fan base all over the world. And it seems to me that most other DJs and musicians are keeping quietly compliant, and they're towing the official line for fear of how it might affect their careers if they don't, as you said. But they're missing the entire point, which is if the architects of this narrative have their way, they won't have a career. Because
Exactly.
as we said, this is all about a war on joy. They don't want live music gigs to go ahead. They don't want festivals to go ahead. They don't want people dancing in nightclubs. So these DJs aren't going to have a career, and these musicians aren't going to have gigs to play at. They don't intend to give us any of this stuff back. So by not speaking out, people are missing the entire point.
Yeah, I think also it's the understanding of it. It's researching. It's reading and looking at outside of the one-dimensional narrative that's being fed to the world. Particularly, this Build Back Better thing. It's just so evidently clear what is going on, because it's all there for you to see. It's right before your eyes if you care to look. But it's, understand what is going on. Maybe, people choose not to understand, and that could be through fear. That could be through just like general laziness. And this thing about, let's just get on with life and make the best of it. But this is not normal living. And this new normal is not going to be our new normal or their new normal. No, the new normal is going to be the world that we envisage, that we want to live, we choose to live in. Not that we want. It's going to happen. They are not going to get this wretched agenda over the line and decimate humanity. There's what lies ahead is a very, very turbulent period for humanity. We're all already in the tunnel, this dark tunnel, this turbulent period. We're already in there. We're in this machine. But people really need to take more time out to, there's this conditioning of anybody who actually does present facts, whether it be science or whatever it may be, and it doesn't really go with the narrative, the official narrative, is ridiculed, rubbished, and these low vibration terms and smeared and stamped out, and this cancel culture. How can anybody not see that? There's this freedom of speech erosion, banning people from social media, this medical apartheid that's brewing, that's already taking place in businesses. There's so many different angles on this, and the children. Face masks on children in schools. Where's the risk assessment? Where is the health and safety, general risk assessment in respect of that? And where is the health and safety in the workplace 1974 Act risk assessment for people wearing masks for prolonged working hours, some of them 8-10 hours a day in the workplace? Where is that? Where are those risk assessments? Have you seen one? Have you read one? No, because they're non-existent. There isn't a risk assessment. That's another matter. But there's so many things going on at once. It is overwhelming. I think this is just such a detailed, complex, so far out there. The whole agenda, that it's beyond a lot of people's realms of thinking. It's like, no, that couldn't possibly it's not happening. It's just too far fetched. This will be all right tomorrow. We'll get there. It's going to be all right in maybe a month or two, or it could be
2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Come on. It's, we're close to a year and a half down the line with this. People, not being able to travel and kind of taking measures to travel must be very, very disappointed at this stage.
It's a shock to the system for DJs like us, isn't it? I mean, I don't DJ much anymore, but I go and do talks and stuff. I mean, up to early 2020, I'm sure you were traveling widely still, and you enjoyed that diversity and, those wonderful experiences
Yeah,
of seeing all these different places.
yeah,
And I did too. It was very
yeah,
therapeutic. It's good for the
yeah,
soul. And
yeah.
then to suddenly have all that snatched away from you is shocking and traumatizing.
Very much so. I've been kind of in and out of depression last year through this. I
Oh,
I
been
was
there,
very
brother.
blessed. Yeah, very blessed and very fortunate to have been in Asia and Australia last February and into March, the 1st of March, I believe it was. I was there the end of January for 1 week into it was 5 weeks and a couple of days. And I was playing in Australia. I arrived in Asia and it was really weird. We arrived in Asia into Bangkok, and I'd seen some stuff on the news that everywhere was Asia. People wear masks in the street because that's spreading germs. If they've got a cold, they can still go to work, and they're very conscious of that, and that's part of the culture in the Asian countries. And the air pollution as well is poor air quality and emissions and what have you in some Asian cities. So it's also protecting kind of the traffic emissions and so on. But everyone had masks on, and as soon as you walked into, we arrived in Bangkok airport, and there was temperature checks and masks were provided, and it was just really weird. You could feel that there was this was pretty serious, and things were changing. And then I was in the gym in a hotel, and I saw this BBC World clip of Wuhan in China, and people being dragged out of apartments and put into boxes and locked up in their apartments, and it was absolutely horrifying. And I just thought, what is going on here? What the hell is going on here? This is very sinister. And lo and behold, kind of as the weeks have gone by, it intensified. But that first week in Asia was pretty heavy. It was just kind of everybody in masks, and that rigidly enforced. Went down to Australia after Asia, and Australia was far more relaxed in terms of this whole kind of the restrictions and everything. It felt pretty normal. But then towards the end of the trip in Australia, I think it was March the 1st, I'd worked in Perth, and then there was no restrictions, no temperature checks, none of that. And we're in Perth Airport, and there was a news TV channel in the cafe I was sitting in, just having a drink and a sandwich, and it came up saying that all these restrictions were coming in today, and there was going to be a lockdown. So, thank heavens, was on that flight out of Perth, because Australia locked down the next day and people couldn't get out of there on flights. Wow. So that would have been absolute nightmare. So that in that respect, and then arrived back, during that trip, Andrew Weatherall, a long-time friend and a legend in the music industry, passed away in hospital, and it was just a real blow. And coming back to that, and then going to his funeral in East London, and the week, I think it was on the funeral was on the Wednesday or Thursday. That weekend we went into the lockdown. So it was just this kind of like this whole series of events. And the lockdowns are, I've gone out. I'm fortunate I live by the sea. So I go out, I've got into cold water swimming. I've always been health conscious. I eat healthy. I don't eat processed food. Occasionally, if you're in an airport or something. So health is of paramount importance to me, and always has been. So I keep healthy. But the mental health aspect, mental health has gone off the scale. The crisis that has been created for it from lockdowns, and the suicide statistics, and all of these good people who just couldn't handle any more of this, and
just not talked about, is it? It's just not addressed in the mainstream.
No, it's not, and taken their lives it's just incredibly sad. It's, I know a couple of people that have, kind of taken their lives, and it's
Yeah,
just
I
horrible.
sympathise.
It's horrible, and all of this with the care homes, with the school children. How do children in care without their birthright parents, how have they been feeling through all of this? How have single mothers living on the 10th floor in a tower block with 3 children been feeling through this? How have they been coping? How have, people who are in abject poverty, which there are 100,000 children in poverty in the Teesside region, just for example, and how are these people feeling? Why are they not on the news? Why, I don't watch TV. I threw the TV out the window two or three decades ago. Well, in the 90s, in fact, I got a TV again. I haven't had a TV for God knows how long. It went out the window. You can have the TV, but just on online and stuff. Where's their voices? Where are the voices of the children? Where are the voices of the elderly? Where, if we're a caring society, and this is all about caring the community and caring and keeping you safe, where are the voices of everybody?
That's right.
There isn't a voice. It's not being broadcast, and it's the toll this has taken upon society is going to take years to get over. But as we know, there's a lot, without sounding too bleak, we know that there's a lot more to come before this gets better.
Well, if we allow it.
Well, if we allow it, but I'm not conforming. I don't conform to any more of this. It's just, it's over. I'm not going anywhere and wearing a mask. No way. It's like,
No,
I'm not going into a pub. I haven't really been to a pub for a while. It's going to a pub and have to sign in or produce some blooming intrusive app. No, thank you. No, I'm free. I'll live life on my terms. There may be some, that's really selfish. No, actually, it's about making a decision of who you are and your own personal freedom, irrespective of restrictions and these fear-based restrictions. Sorry, it's like, it's not happening now. It's, enough is enough. It really is. And this is the thing with the industry. If things don't open up, then there needs to be mass non-compliance. That's it. It's over. Absolutely. We're going to open up. They have to.
The only thing that's going to do it.
Well, particularly in the music business, because what's the option? Insolvency. Insolvency is a horrendous experience and place to be. It's assets. Assets are taken away. Houses lost.
Everything you spent your entire life working on, taken from
absolutely you. Gone from trustees of bankruptcy, and they are lethal and ruthless. Homeless statistics will go up, but this devastation to the economy and independent business and medium-sized businesses is immense. Not everybody has had the government funding and furloughing and large amounts of money to keep your business closed. It's just it's kind of financial bribery, I feel. Well, look, there's kind of £200,000. You can keep your nightclub running or your bar business or whatever it may be, or your restaurant, but you'll have to remain closed for until we say when kind of things are safe to open. But that drain on financial resources. I mean, how many billions have been given, just handed out, and how is that money going to be recouped? But all of this is tied into the reset, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what's been disappointing for me, thinking about the dance music industry, is not only DJs and producers and big names not speaking out about our rights being taken away from us and our freedoms being demolished, but actually virtue signaling and reinforcing the official line on things. I've seen a lot of big names endorsing the masks and the lockdowns and the distancing, and they've been lashing out at DJs who have been playing the odd festival here and there that has gone ahead.
Yeah.
There were a few in Mexico, and
Yeah.
some of these people are saying, you're selfish for going and playing that gig. And it's just so disappointing that they're missing the entire point of what's going on here.
Well, what do they think they're going to get? Some kind of like, Esther Ranson Award of a good citizen. And, Esther will come round and give you this golden award. Hey, you've been really good. The virtue signalling. Exactly. Well done, that's great. You've lost over a year of work, you've eaten into your savings because, you might have quite a lot of, kind of money in, assets in the bank. But hey, well done. It's just, it's staggering. It's absolutely staggering. But I think in the hip hop community, I heard a great track out of Canada the other day. Is it RC? This guy, he's a white rapper. His track is so powerful. It's just say no. It's slamming. And there's some other tracks out of London that are really great as well. And you've got Remisy. He's there's a couple of tracks from that guy. There's Don't Take the whatever you like to call it, and there's one about marching. There's Ask Abs. He's a young London rapper who I came across on Instagram. There
are a few, but we're still lacking the big names, aren't we? We're still lacking the household names that everyone would know.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the ground level, there are some great tracks coming out with conscious rap going on. There's not a great deal from the house community. I'm working on a track at the moment that has a message in it. I haven't been in the studio for a couple of years, so nearly completed that. There's a handful of tracks from the kind of techno and house productions, but I think labels, some labels don't want to touch it because they think, oh, well, that's a bit like kind of risque, or it's not going along with the the guidelines and kind of what you can write music about and what you can say. Well, activism has been there, from the off in music. It's, for, how long has activism and...
supposed to be what it's all about, isn't it? Music's supposed to be anti-establishment and rebellious.
Exactly, yeah. From all of the decades, what's happening at the moment? And fair play to Eric Clapton and Van Morrison. I think those tracks are great. Ian Absolutely. Brown also. Right Said Fred. I met them on the rally a couple of times. They're great guys.
Let me ask you what flack you've copped for speaking out, because I look at some posts from Van Morrison and Ian Brown, and they're getting savaged by their own fan base. Their own fans are saying, Ian, you've lost the plot, and Van, just stick to playing the blues, mate. You don't know what you're talking about when it comes to politics. Have you copped a load of flack yourself from people?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I have, of course. But, it raise the vibration. I do not lower my energy to that negative vibration, that frequency, that I just do not engage with it. I've had lots of personal, kind of insults. Hey, look, we've all got a different opinion. They don't come onto your page, and enter your front door and come in and start shouting and insulting you and being some of it is personal insults. Hey, what would you do? You get booted out of the house and the door will be locked and you never be invited back in. And that's how I deal with matters. With social media, I just block it. That's it. It's one strike, you're out. It's but that isn't free speech. Well, neither is personal insults and just this kind of this attitude. It's just ridiculous. It's like kind of you can't have a conversation. You have to take it to this low vibration. And there's as I said earlier, there's such the vibration is we're raising the vibration, and lowering it to that level. It takes your energy away. It's stealing your energy and bringing it down to that level. So I just ignore it. and after years in the music industry as well, you've got to have a thick skin in the industry, as you know, Mark. I don't engage with it, and anybody who is not following the herd, and kind of, you're going to get people who will take take it upon themselves to be rude and insulting. And I've seen it on Ian Brown's page. I got banned from Twitter, suspended, and whatever they call it. I was on there 3 weeks. I was very vocal about campaigning and issues, and I got suspended. So, but it was quite enjoyable being back there 3 weeks. I made some, a good network was forming, and people who were speaking from the nightlife community and the hospitality industries and the arts, and that's the state of play. With social media, and the same. Facebook, I left there. I have an account. I left there last April, and I don't intend on going back there ever again. It's toxic. It's divisory. It's algorithm driven. When it began, it was an open democratic platform. People could debate. Nowadays, the art of debate has been long lost because of the algorithm programming on Facebook is designed to cause division, divide and conquer techniques. So, do I miss Facebook? No. I calculated the time I spent on Facebook 2 years ago. I read a book, 10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Account, by one of the original platform designers, Silicon Valley. Great read. So out of that book, I decided to calculate the time, and I spent 6 weeks of 1 year on social media and Facebook. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and I was horrified. I just thought, oh my God, that's like 6 weeks of one's life. And I decided to cut back on it, which I did, and I've left. I hold the account. I have an assistant that I don't go in there. I don't want to go in there. But music posts and things like that on a music page, I've disabled the other page. The personal page, and I have more free time and less. I think it becomes stressful for people as well, and it can really it has sank some people. It's so toxic that you could open the computer and then look at a message on one of the posts, and you put a post up, and there's this toxic abuse on there, and it's just
it's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, and that affects people. People don't think before they spew out all this vile kind of negativity, this fear and this kind of insulting language, and
they'd never bring it to your face, would they, and say it to you in person?
Well, if it was in the pub, it would be a different story. But that's the thing, kind of hiding behind the mask online. There are good points with social media, but I think it's it's impacted all of our lives. And during the lockdown, I think has opened a lot of people's eyes to what else is out there. I watched London Real, some of the interviews on London Real with Judy Makovitz and Dr. Rashid Bhattar. There was 3 interviews with David Icke. Didn't really kind of follow or know, a great deal about his, presentations. But those interviews were immense. They had millions of people tuned in and watched them. And there was a real turning point. But all of these, Dolores Cahill, Sherry Tenpenny, all of these notable people that were presenting another side of the coin. I think, London Real TV really did, at that period, they were presenting so many great people on that platform that it opened a lot of people's eyes who may not have been treading that path and looking for that type of information. And I think that was very positive. and kind of we weren't really finding that on Facebook, for example. And I hear that on Facebook now, kind of anything that's not, kind of in line with the guidelines is removed. Groups, posts, bans.
I'm on a 30-day ban myself at the moment.
Well, there you go. It's like, Facebook jail. It's so many people. It's like, oh, I'm banned from Facebook for another 30 days. I just think I think Facebook will implode at some point, the same as MySpace did. Everything has a cycle. Look at MySpace.
Blast from the past, MySpace.
Yeah, well, look at that. And then Facebook stepped in. Rupert Murdoch bought Facebook, MySpace, a huge amount of money, millions, and it just bombed. Where he took ownership, and Facebook emerged and became the new platform. And there are other alternative platforms out there, and everything has a shelf life and a cycle. And this restrictive, undemocratic technocracy is, that's becoming so restrictive, and this cancel culture, that people will find alternative platforms and other ways of communication in a more democratic form.
That's right. So was that the last time you travelled, Australia?
It was, yeah. Like in February 2020.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
I was due to be in Australia myself in March last year. I was due to leave the UK on the 16th of March on a speaking tour, and obviously it never happened. And I feared the kind of situation that you outlined, that I might get stranded out there, which would be a total nightmare.
Yeah. Well, that would have been being stranded in Australia would have been a real nightmare. The stories that were coming out of there, and also for families who can't actually get back to Australia. There's people. I've got a friend. His wife to be moved down there. He went down there shortly before the lockdowns and everything and the restrictions. And he hasn't seen her for 18 months. He's trying to get a visa to go there and work there, and he's still not able to do that. So that's just one example. There's thousands and thousands of people who can't get to see their families, who live here and the families in Australia, or vice versa, which is that is terrible. It's kind of, a lot can change in 2 years and 3 years. How long is that going to go on for? With this restriction of, Australia is very, very restrictive of the entry of their own nationals and foreign nationals.
Yeah, I keep an eye on Carl Cox's page, and he's in Melbourne there, he's not been able to get out for over a year, and he's just been basically homebound for all that time. And he used to travel a lot. Yeah,
so he's just based in Melbourne then.
Yeah, he's been stuck in his house in Melbourne for like 16 months.
Crikey, yeah.
Because Melbourne's been particularly harsh. So we'll start to wrap up now, Danny, but I just wanted to ask you what you feel are the most valuable lessons that people can take away from this experience, this horrendous experience we've all been through. What do you think we can learn from this?
I think, the stand in your truth, stand in your power. Think about self-sovereignty, who we are, our self-worth, our value, the future that we want to see, that we will be living in, and this divide and conquer. Unity is our strength. Whatever choices you make, wherever you're at with your thinking, at the end of the day, we're all human, and unity is our strength. There's a rally on Saturday, but there's a rally on Sunday with the music scene, Save Our Scene. Originally, they were going to do it on Saturday and come along to the main rally, but now they've switched it to Sunday. I don't understand that. I don't really know the people behind it, but I think it would have been more beneficial to the music scene to have been part of the 1 million+ rally. There's all different people that attend the rally from all different faiths and walks of life and different reasons for being there. Some it's business, some it's health. All different things, all manner of things, and that's the unity of the people. And we need unity more than ever. And I think that we're heading towards that. The longer these restrictions go on, it's so important. It's so important. But the media is driving some quarters of the media this divide. It's appalling.
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, it's such a shame there aren't more recognized names speaking out about this, because it could make such a difference with the huge fan bases they have. But I want to thank you for coming on today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your vision and your insights. And I just wish there were more like you out there. So thank you for standing in truth, brother. And thank you for saying things that need to be said.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mark. And I will keep doing that. I will keep flying the flag on the hill for freedom. I shall see you on Saturday, hopefully.
Well, I will be there, yeah, with hopefully a million others. So we might miss each other, but we'll both be there one way or another.
Yeah, good talking to you.
This is just a wrap. Vibrations, I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up good vibrations. I'm picking up